Thank you everyone for joining us again on the How to Be Hopeful podcast. My name is Bernadette Russell. This is a podcast all about hope, how to find it and how to keep hold of it when we found it. And this week I'm delighted to be joined by the lovely Becky Dell from the Citizens of the World Choir, practically my neighbour, aren't you, Becky?
South East London crew.
That's it. See, there's been a lot of representation from South East London. So I'm not saying that it's like the centre of the compassionate universe, but I am. Um, so yeah, I just wanted to check in first of all and see how you're doing. How are you today?
Do you know what? I am actually feeling very positive and hopeful today. So what a good day to be talking to you.
Amazing. And obviously this is audio, so you can't see, but Becky's wearing a very pleasing pink, which is nice. I'm wearing red, so I've gone for a sort of a bit of it. Oh, nice little pattern of flowers there. And I saw some crocuses this morning, Becky, and some snowdrop. So that was, yeah, nature's doing it for us. Um, in that we were just discussing feeling a little bit more hopeful at the moment. I like to ask everybody to start with if there's been something this particular week that has made them feel hopeful. No obligation if there hasn't been particularly, but I wondered if there's been anything for you this week that's made you feel hopeful.
Yes, absolutely. The blue skies have made me feel really hopeful. It's something I ask myself often, like in the winter, if you're having a bad day, I say, now, how would you feel if it was 24 degrees outside and blue skies? And if the answer is I would feel completely different, then you know it's sort of a situational feeling because it's grey or miserable or something. But I've definitely hit my pandemic brick wall this week. I found that I've sort of had 11 months of being very optimistic and come on, we can do this, we can get through it. And this week has definitely been really tough. Like I'm really missing people. I'm love that we can still do choir rehearsals and I teach music lessons on Zoom, but it is no substitute for seeing people in the flesh. And I definitely hit my brick wall. And then the blue skies have really cheered me up. So snow and blue skies has been very welcome this week.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's, for me, this period, the last few weeks, I keep thinking of the word gentle, Becky. I think we need to be gentle with each other
Mhm.
and with ourselves because it is tough. It's really tough. And I was delighted when the snow came for myself, but also for the kids, because I was like, it's amazing for them that they've got that. And I love hearing
Absolutely.
the screams of sledding in the background and sort of getting pelted with snowballs. It's fun. But I think that's a really beautiful thing to, that's a really lovely tip to just think if you're feeling a bit down, imagine a blue sky. I think that's really lovely. And yeah, nature helps us out a little bit sometimes.
Absolutely, yeah. I went for a walk last week and saw some lovely flowers peeping through as well. And I just want to absolutely echo what you say about the snow and kids. I've got some wonderful kid neighbours, and the first time the snow came, we went out and had a mini snowball fight, and it was just so much fun. So there is always fun and joy to be found.
Yeah, and it is worth, it is really worth acknowledging as well that it is more harder to find that some days than others, and that's okay. But there is always something.
Yeah.
And yeah, loving the snowball fights so much. I'm so childish. Could I ask you to introduce yourself if that's okay, however you like, and the Citizens of the World Choir, which I looked at your website and I was so moved and inspired by it. But I just wondered if you wouldn't mind introducing that in your own inimitable words, Becky.
Absolutely. So I'm Becky Dell, the musical director of the Citizens of the World Choir. We're a choir for refugees, migrants, asylum seekers, and friends. We've been going since 2017. The choir was set up in response to the refugee crisis in Europe. And my goodness, it's just been the most amazing roller coaster of a journey over the last 4 years. We have grown and grown and grown from strength to strength, and it sounds so cheesy, but it's so true. And we really are one big, happy, very multicultural family. We've got about 50 people in a choir. We generally gig, remember that when we used to do live gigs? We generally gig with about 30 to 35 of us, and we have 28 different countries from around the world represented. So I know, and again, this radio you can't see Bernadette's face, but it's that look when we say how many cultures we have represented from around the world. It's magnificent. We are truly a multicultural family.
So brilliant. I can't wait to come and see. That's going to happen. So we'll put that in the pot of.
Yep.
That's really lovely, and it's going to be easy for me because, as I said, you're neighbours. Before we kind of dig into that a little bit deeper, I wanted to just find out a little bit about you and your background. I know you have the Becky Dell Music Academy, which sounds very exciting and slightly sort of Harry Potterish, and your kind of magical. And your journey, Becky, before that led you up to the point of setting up the choir. I'm just sort of interested in, I guess, your musical journey.
Yeah, I love that you said Harry Potter because honestly, I love Harry Potter. They're my favorite books. And there's just so much to take from them all the time. There's so much wisdom in those books. I love it. Yes, so I've had the Becky Dell Music Academy for 9 years now, which is just an absolute joy and wonder. We're based in Blackheath and Greenwich in South East London, and we do home music lessons. I've got about 150 students in my academy, and it's just such a joy and delight to teach these students. I've got about 20 tutors that work for me, and we're just, again, I think lots of things I do are very community focused. So we've got a great community of tutors, great community of students. We come together a couple of times a year to do concerts at the lovely Mycenae House, which is also where the choir is based. It's this amazing arts and community centre in Greenwich in South East London. But cycling back a little bit further, so I first got into music aged 4.5, and I know the moment, which is beautiful actually. Jacqueline Dupre was on the TV playing the Elgar Cello Concerto, and I was 4.5 years old, and I still remember it now, looking at the TV and saying, I want to play what that lady's playing. She was an incredible musician, absolutely incredible. I had to wait until I was about 6 or 7, until I'd grown a bit, till I could start playing the cello, and even then it was a very small size one. But the Algar Cello Concerto has been one of these pieces that stayed with me throughout my life, and it's still one of my favourite pieces of music. And if you don't know it, I would urge anyone to go and have a listen to the Jacqueline Dupre version. I joined my church choir at age 7, and I spent 10 years singing in a church choir. And I always sort of quite like to fly the flag for a very good, positive religious experience as I was growing up. I was in a very lovely, liberal Church of England church, 800-year-old church. It was so beautiful and so lovely, and I so enjoyed singing there. And I had a brilliant musical education doing that. I was very active in school and had such brilliant music teachers at school, Mr. Banks and Mrs. Cross, who were just incredible, and I'm so thankful to them. You know, when I think back upon my music career, my music life, it's because I had inspirational music teachers when I was a student, and yeah, they set me on the path for where I am now. So huge thanks to them. Yes, and then I've just always done music. I knew from age 4.5 that I wanted to do music, and I'm really lucky that that's what's happened. So I went to Trinity College of Music, which of course is now called Trinity Laban in Greenwich. I studied percussion and singing and piano. I went on to join the West End show Stomp for a couple of years.
I love that show.
Yeah.
I saw, I think, one of the sort of probably the earliest versions, the very early incarnation of that. Just amazing. It completely blew me away.
Yeah, it's an amazing show, and Steve and Luke, who created it, are such lovely, creative, inspirational people. And you know, the absolute irony of having done this 4-year classical music degree in, you know, percussion and xylophone and timpani, and then I ended up making my living literally banging dustbin lids together. But I loved it so much. It was an incredible show, and I was so happy to have been part of it for a couple of years. I was then in a signed band for 4 years called Orchid Star, did the festival circuit, played Glastonbury, all those kind of things. Again, absolute dream come true. And then I was in a cabaret act for 3 years. So that sort of encompassed my 20s. And I have no regrets. I just spent this glorious decade touring and gigging. And it was wonderful. It was absolutely wonderful. But then I turned 30. I realised I didn't want to do quite so much touring anymore. I wanted to put some roots down. I'd always done a bit of teaching on the side, and had a really long waiting list to have lessons with me. And I thought, right, this is my moment. Then very sadly, my grand died. I adored both of them. They were both wonderful, very supportive and kind, loving grandmas. And they'd left me some money, and I used that to set up the academy, which I thought was a wonderful way of honouring them, honouring all the people that had given something to me, and then giving something back to the next generation. So that's my story.
such a great origin story. It's really lovely. I like thinking of them like that. I think it's really interesting.
Yeah.
And it's nice, I think, to sort of. I always try to sort of get people to tell how they got to where they got to, rather than it starting there, because we don't always hear that about each other, I think, and it's just lovely. Thank you for sharing that. So you've described the choir, which is amazing, and I read on your website that Lord Robert Rogers of Llandudno. I was nervous about saying that. Not bad. A lot of
Well
alliteration.
done, yeah, well done. It's a double L's are always a challenge in Welsh, aren't they?
And the Roger Roberts, which is amazing.
Yeah.
Yes, he wanted to promote integration and healing through the power of music, which is a quote. Um,
Yeah.
so I just wondered how it started and when, going back to the very beginning, how you got involved, who else was involved at the start, and a little bit just about the beginning of that, the first rehearsals, etc.
Yeah, well, again, another origin story. I was really ill in 2015. I had quite some bad gynae problems, which thankfully the NHS have twice saved my life, and God bless the NHS. And actually, the surgeon who operated on me twice was not from this country. He was a migrant, and I'm very, very grateful to him. He was an incredibly kind and lovely surgeon. I'm so grateful. So when I was recovering, there was all this really horrible narrative in the press going on, calling refugees migrants and calling migrants cockroaches, and say, these. Do you remember those lines? The photo, the Farage photo with the lines and the queues. It was awful. It was so awful and dehumanising refugees and migrants. And I just thought I've got to do something about this. And again, I don't really go to church much anymore, but mum and dad still do. And I've gone back home for Christmas to recuperate from this operation. And we went to midnight mass, and their lovely Vicar Andrew was talking about peace and love to everyone. And I thought, I don't think there's much peace and love going on towards refugees in the refugee camps right now. Actually, I think Jesus, whether you think he was the son of God or not, I think most people think there's a guy called Jesus who went around 2,000 years ago preaching love and understanding. And I think Jesus would have gone to the refugee camps and given them food and water and love and help,
Well,
and
absolutely.
not called them cockroaches. Um, yeah, so as soon as I was better, I took some of my tutors over there. So I took, I think, 7 of my tutors and me went over. We did a community collection, raised about £1,000, took blankets, food, musical instruments over with us, and went over to the Calais camp in early 2016. We went over 5 times that year, and we taught music to the kids in a school over there, because there were schools, there's 10,000 people living in a field that used to be a rubbish dump in northern France. Like, unless people have been there, it's so hard to describe it. The best way, I don't know if you've been to a festival, or if your listeners have been to festivals, but that end of festival feeling, where like on day 5 or 6, and there's rubbish everywhere, and people don't really care anymore, and all the sort of goodwill's gone out the window. It felt a little bit like that. There's rubbish, there's litter, it's a really hard place for them to be. So anyway, we wanted to try and go over and help a bit, help practically and help emotionally and spiritually by doing the thing that we do, which is music. And I'm so glad we did, because it was a tiny drop in the ocean, but we injected a bit of hope and positivity over there, and hope is such an important and valuable thing. Through that, we met a whole bunch of other amazing volunteers. Tess, who runs Calais Action, Ian Shaw, who's a jazz singer, who's an incredible humanitarian. And we sort of formed a bit of a group. Tess was already working with Lord Roberts at Parliament, and she invited me into a meeting. And my goodness, the whole thing has just grown from there. So Lord Roberts is just one of the most incredible human beings I've ever met. I call him a Werther's original peer, because he's like... He's everything that you would want a peer in the House of Lords to be. He's like a granddad to the nation. He's such a wonderful human being. He's a good Welshman. So he loves singing. He loves community. He's so full of love and kindness and compassion. He's been a peer, I think, for about 15 years, and has for a very long time campaigned for refugee rights and human rights, and just a bit more love and understanding, and community, bringing us together, seeing the things that we have in common. So there had been the Dubs Amendment. I don't know if you remember the Dubs Amendment. People who work in the refugee world, had been fighting for a very long time. Lord Dubs himself was a kinder transport child, so had come over at the start of the Second World War, had been saved from Nazi Germany by the UK, which I'm just going to add a little note to this because I've only learnt this in the last couple of years. We really like to sort of have the glory of going, oh, we rescued 10,000 children. And that's the headline. Like, the reality, when you dig into that, is the government didn't want to do it, and people had to campaign and fight and provide financial support in order for us to get these 10,000 refugee children over here. It was a really hard fought, hard won campaign. And it's a bit like that at the moment. So we were trying to get 3,000 children. The Dubs Amendment was trying to get 3,000 vulnerable refugee children to the UK. And the Conservative government, to its shame, said no. They voted it down. Lord Roberts had spent a sleepless night worrying about these children, and he phoned me the next day and said, I've had an idea. We can't do anything for these children, but we can do something for the people who are already over here. So why don't we start a choir?
Very moving. Becky, I just wanted to sort of pick on something you've mentioned a couple of times because I don't want to brush over it, and I actually feel that it's really important, and that is the sort of positive and beautiful contribution of religious organisations, because it sometimes, I think, gets a little bit of a bad name. All of that, not just Christianity, but
Mm-hmm.
other faiths. The sort of positive contribution of kindly, compassionate people within churches and within mosques and within synagogues. I think it feels really important to me because often I feel like the headlines we get are the negative ones about a lot of different faiths.
Absolutely,
I think
yeah.
it's really important that I just feel like it's really important to acknowledge that I'm not Christian, but I had an amazing Sunday school teacher who introduced me in a different way to sort of storytelling and sort of writing. It was very encouraging and funny, and always smelled of coffee and cigarettes, which sounds slightly incongruous, but it was actually kind of entrancing. Really lovely. So I think it's really important to kind of just sort of acknowledge that what you said. I think that's really lovely. And also the work of Lord Dubs. I'm hoping later on to have because I'm sort of connected to Compassion in Politics, which you'll probably know.
Brilliant. Yeah.
I'm hoping to speak to them.
Can I just say on the religious front, actually, it's really interesting you said that, because when we went over to the camps, the volunteers who are working there, because of course the governments don't recognise that it's a refugee camp, they call it a migrant camp. Although when I think it was Kev Calais did a what's it called when you check where everyone's from? I can't think what it's called. They did a survey, just checking where everybody's from. Actually, 80% of the people in a census, that's the word I was looking for, a census. Actually, about 80% of the people in the camp were refugees, not economic migrants. And it was about 20% were economic migrants. So it was a refugee camp, not a migrant camp. And that's a really important distinction. And in case your listeners don't know, a refugee is someone that has to flee because of war or persecution or a situation outside their control. And an economic migrant is someone that chooses to leave their home country in search of a better future or for a variety of reasons, but that's a choice, and a refugee doesn't have a choice. So it's a really important distinction to make. And so the French and the UK government decided it wasn't a refugee camp, so therefore none of the NGOs can go in. Things like the Red Cross can only go in at a country's invitation, and the government did not allow them to go in. So the only way that the Calais camp survived, and many other camps survived, is by very small grassroots organisations that are run by people who just go, I can't watch this and not do anything. And so many of the groups we saw over there were religious groups from a huge range of religious societies. So there's a group of people from the festival scene who are like, all right, we can cope with these conditions and we'll go. And I probably sort of put myself in that category. And there was a huge bunch from religious organisations, Sikhs, Muslims, Jews, people of all faiths and none, some humanist societies over there, but just people who went, we can't look away. So I think like in the history of the refugee camps, that's a really important, point to acknowledge.
It's really important. It's really positive as well that we can all be together, as you said, all faiths and none, helping each other, just connecting sort of through common humanity. It's so beautiful. I'm sort of interested, I suppose, in I've been having a lot of conversations recently about around sort of storytelling and story sharing, and I've been interested in sort of how art, different expressions of art that aren't about words, that isn't about words, actually can help people and give hope. And so I suppose I sort of thought of you. Um, did it? I suppose I wanted to know if you feel that people being able to sing together allows them a sort of escape. Maybe that's the wrong way, or a sort of way of expressing things that might be difficult to express by sharing or telling a particularly difficult story.
Absolutely, 100%. And one of the best things for me in choir rehearsals when we're in the same room is seeing the joy blazed on people's faces when they're singing. People that I know have had really hard lives, have got hard stories, have got PTSD, spend a lot of the rest of the time life is really hard for them. But in that moment, all they are thinking about is the joy because they are singing together with other people. And it's magical. It's the best part of my week every week is seeing looks on their faces when they're singing.
It's so brilliant. I can't wait. I was sorry. This is it's probably quite a boring kind of practical question, but I suppose I was curious about how do you reach out and get everybody? Is that tricky for you?
Yeah.
Just because
No, not at all.
someone might be listening and thinking, do you know what? I really fancy doing this. And I think sometimes what's a barrier to people being active in that way is thinking, I don't really know where I'd start or how I'd invite people kindly or how I would find them. So would you mind sharing how you do that?
Yeah, of course. And it's really interesting because this is a question that comes up a lot in interviews, and it surprised me at the beginning because actually we just did it. So I think there's just 7 or 8 of us in a management team. We all knew each other from Calais. We were all involved in a refugee scene. We just had a whole bunch of people on our phone. We're like, hey, mate, do you want to come along to a choir? And then, and Neil, who set the choir up with me, he did a whole bunch of work going into refugee organisations in the local, like, Lewisham and Woolwich area. And we got some people in that way. But I think we're all very connected people, the management team that run it. Yeah, and then we were a bit of being proactive, a bit of developing relationships with refugee and migrant groups within our community, and a bit of going through our little black book. We also, something practical we did was we had a flyer and then we translated it into several different languages. I can't remember how many, at least 10 different languages. And that was really useful. At the beginning, some of the people that came didn't speak very good English, and one of the wonderful benefits of being in a choir, both not through through singing and through just speaking to people and being involved, is that their language has increased so much. Unlike mine, I'm absolutely tripping over my words this morning. I have to say, I'm, as you know, a music teacher, and it's the last day of half term today, so I was slightly delirious on the last day of term.
Very eloquent, not at all. Lovely. So that's really interesting, I think, because I think that's a really great point. So thank you. I think something you said about having a team is really useful because sometimes if
Uh-huh.
you want to start this or that, I say to them, you need to find your group first of all because just because it's a very large thing to do on your own. So to sort of connect with to
Yeah.
get a little team. Yeah.
And if I could pay homage to the team, I sort of end up doing quite a lot of these interviews, but I want to categorically say I am a small part in the cogs that make the magic of Citizens of the World happen. Most of our team have been in since day one, and 4 years later, we're all still here, which again is just testament to this wonderful community we've created. But they all work so hard. We're actually in the process, hopefully, of becoming a charity this year. We're applying to the Charities Commission. The first 3 years, we were an entirely volunteer-led organisation, so we all volunteered our time, and sort of that was wonderful for the first bit, and then we went, well, you can't keep growing the choir like this. So this year we have very deliberately moved to a professional music organisation, and there's 7 of us that are now paid part-time to run the choir, and we're in the process of hopefully becoming a charity and just making it even more professional, and yet developing it even further. But the team is amazing, and the magic wouldn't happen without them. So in fact, I'm going to name them all because they're all brilliant. So we've got Tess, Tom, Rachel, Meg, Matilda, Maddie. So thank you to all of you. You're all wonderful, and I love you all very much.
Thank you for saying their names. It's really nice and important actually to hear people's names. Very simple question, I suppose, but quite broad. What kind of stuff does the choir get up to?
Yeah, so my goodness, musically, it's just it's the most wonderful rollicking journey through music we could do. So the thing that we have that not many other choirs have is inspiration from 28 different cultures, and we love that. We love that. So our year is generally split into 2 seasons, so we do 2 seasons a year with about 10 to 12 rehearsals, and we learn about 4 to 6 songs per season. And then we're a really big gigging choir, so we will then gig for about 8 to 10 gigs at the end of each season. So we gig about 20 times a year, which is, it's a lot. I never wanted to be a community choir that just did 1 or 2 gigs a year. Like the whole point, in fact, the reason choir was started was to help healing through the power of music. To provide community integration, because we're half refugees and half non-refugees and the choir, and we still maintain that ratio, and that's really important. But also to elevate the story about refugees and migrants and the important contribution they make to our society. So us being out and being proud and being vocal is a really big part of what we, why we do what we do. And there's absolutely value in people running community choirs that choose to only do 1 or 2 gigs a year, but that wasn't what we wanted to do with our platform. So we're very much a loud and gigging choir. So we learn a lot of repertoire, but we don't really do anything off the book. We virtually arrange everything ourselves. So we do a lot of folk music because obviously we're inspired from music around the world. I wrote down what we're doing at the moment. So at the moment we're doing a Josha folk song, which is called Ngoma. So that's from South Africa in 3-part harmonies. Absolutely gorgeous. We're doing Wellerman, the sea shanty that's going around at the moment. So we're doing that. And we're also working on our own EP at the moment. So Tom, who's our pianist and composer, we actually managed to crowdfund £15,000 just before Christmas, which was incredible, to record an EP in lockdown. Yeah, thank you. We think we're the first choir in the world to record on Zoom and WhatsApp. We were really lucky, and I know, it's absolutely bonkers. We were really lucky, and we got another small digital grant to give Tom some software to do all of this. And it's working. Like, it's a bit complicated and long-winded, but we're doing it, or he's doing it. He's incredible. So I think that'll be finished by April. We're sort of halfway through the second track at the moment. So we recorded 1 track already. It's going absolutely brilliantly.
In a sort of more general way, I suppose, have the participants spoken to you about how the experience of collective of singing in this community, which they have with local people as well, so this mixed community, have they spoken to you about that, and could you sort of share a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, it's made so much difference to their lives, and it's improved things in a very bleak time. It has made a huge difference. But I guess I also want to say at this point, what a difference it's made to our lives. And when we started this, we wanted to do something because we couldn't turn away, and we sort of wanted to help. But I don't think any of us realised what an impact it was going to have on our lives. And it's fundamentally changed our lives for the better, because we have, they always say the world is a book, and if you stay in your own country, you read 1 page. And what's happened is we've now had the experience of reading 28 different pages. Although we haven't gone to those countries, we've experienced life through their eyes, and we've exchanged music and food and culture guides, and it's been a wonderful sort of mishmash of culture and geography and history and politics and music and everything. So yes, it's helped them, but yes, it's helped us. And I guess I just sort of want to say that in a way that I sort of don't want to see us to sort of be like white saviours, but undoubtedly it's made a huge difference to their lives. Yeah.
That's the sort of point about community, isn't it? That it's not a them and us situation in any of these. This is the impact it's had on all of us. I think that's sort of really, really important. Always the case.
We,
Also, it's
we
really encouraging to know and to hear that being, setting out to do something generous and kind and compassionate is also an act of generosity and kindness and compassion to yourself, which hopefully is encouraging, I hope.
Absolutely. When I think back, actually I started this from one of the worst periods of my life. Like, I was in hospital, I couldn't walk for a few weeks, I was in so much pain, and I was just like sort of determined to try and change my narrative and be like, well, there's some, statistically there were 4 million women, leaving Syria at that time. I was like, one of them will have been going through what I've been going through, but won't have access to the NHS and pain relief and etc. So I was so determined to try and turn this horrible situation around. And through the generosity and hard work and collective will of like so many people, we're at where we're at now, and it's astonishing, really. So yeah, I would say to anyone, even in the darkest moments of your life, like, look to see how you can turn the situation around. Like, I know it's so hard at the moment. Like, I even feel like a little bit funny saying it because, oh my God, we're 11 months into like lockdown and pandemic, and I think hope is thin on the ground for people. But I guess I just want to say, like, try and dig deep and find hope and find belief that things will get better, because they will. And if it was 24 degrees and blue skies outside, everything would feel a lot better. So hold on to that faith that things will get there.
It's also, I think, I was thinking about that, Becky. I thought it's okay as well to say, to sort of, to manage our expectations right now, and to say what makes me happy and what do I love that I have access to now, not trying to reach for a, at the moment, unknowable future, because that's the truth, it's uncertain. But, and those things can be like seeing a crocus bravely persevering in the snow, and actually there's a lot of beauty in that and a lot of hope in that, that there's always tiny little things, aren't there? There's always tiny little things. And actually people who have experienced great hardship and trauma, which is many people, are often really good at reminding you of that, I find, anyway. Like, actually,
Yeah.
go
I
ahead.
tell you what, one of the other things I vividly remember from the refugee camp, and this will stay with me for the rest of my life, is I remember being invited into a tent and someone wanted to share their lunch with me, and they had like 3 tea bags left, and they wanted to share one with me. They had so little, but what they still had was compassion and dignity, and I sat down and shared lunch with them, because actually that is the human thing to do, is to go, I recognize what you are giving me and the price that this is, and I am grateful and I accept it, and I see you as a human,
Yeah.
level to level. Yeah.
Actually accepting is part of compassion as well, because then you're equal people, aren't you, sharing this amazing thing. It's beautiful. I'm interested in sort of relation to COVID, Becky, about what you think about how music and singing together, whether that's digitally at the moment, or at the moment it probably is, can decrease loneliness and give us hope that we can sort of live more connected lives. Specifically, kind of thinking about combating loneliness and isolation and increasing connectivity. And do you think that singing contributes to that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there are many wonderful ways of being connected in your community. I was just reading something last night about some wood carving classes that's really helped a community. I think I was on the Comic Relief newsletter, actually, and I thought that was just delightful. I'm obviously here flying the flag for music and for singing, but there are many ways which people can be connected. So let's talk about music. There are so many studies that show singing is good for you. I firmly believe that everyone can sing. Like, it's our birthright to sing, just as it's our birthright to, speak and dance and be joyful and celebrate life. So everyone can sing. Statistically, actually, 2% of the population is tone deaf. My mum is one of them. She sings about a semitone flat, but she can still sing. And I don't think it's up to anyone to say you can or can't sing. I'm going to say now, everyone can sing. So singing is great for you. It releases something. If you sing with a group of people, there are studies show that your heartbeat starts syncing up, because I know, it's amazing, isn't it? Because you become one.
That's literally the best thing I've heard all year.
Yeah, I'm going to absolutely name drop here, so apologies for that. But Felix from Basement Jacks, who we've been working with Basement Jacks this year, he told me that he's such a lovely person, and he's really into his sound healing and music stuff. And he told me that, so I love that. Yeah, really nice. So yeah, I would encourage anyone to get involved in their community, and if music and singing is the thing that speaks to you, then do that. It will make you feel better. You'll make some lovely friends, and you'll learn some new music and a new life skill and some new experiences, and hopefully that will just make you happier and more joyful.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Um, the one little thing I wanted to talk to you about, because I just think it's interesting at the moment, is to ask you to speak a little bit about how you adapted. When we had that first lockdown that began March the 24th last year, and how you adjusted and how that's been.
Yeah. So we generally have January and February off, and we start again in March. And our first rehearsal was something like the 16th of March. And throughout the 2 weeks preceding it, we were like, oh, are we? Aren't we? What do we think? Maybe? Could we? No, was the answer. We didn't. We didn't. So we moved very quickly to Zoom. Thankfully, again, because I run a music school, I'd sort of started investigating all of that and working out how to do music lessons online, I think at the end of February. And so we managed to transition the choir fairly quickly to Zoom, and it has been brilliant. You know, in some ways, I'm so overdoing rehearsals on Zoom, and yet I am so grateful that this technology exists. 10 years ago, it would have been a very different story, and we probably would have had to stop choir for a year. And when the choir is such a valuable community to people, like I'm so proud that we've kept going this entire time. So we still do our weekly rehearsals on Zoom. People often ask me, how do you get a choir to sing together on Zoom? And the answer is you can't. So what we do, we do shorter rehearsals as well, because no one needs a 2.5 hour Zoom rehearsal. So we do about an hour to an hour and a quarter. And I teach the music, and then everyone else is muted, and then people sing along at home. So it's a bit more of a teaching rehearsal rather than us all singing together. Very occasionally, for a bit of fun, I say, right, everyone unmute, and we're all going to sing. And it's like completely out of time and out of tune, but we just have a laugh singing together. But, you know, 99% of the time, everyone else is muted. Um, but we also, Matilda and I, so Matilda's our executive producer, and Matilda and I are very much, well, the whole team is very much a can-do attitude team, which again, like really helps having people who are the opposite of computer says no. You know, we're like, what can we do in this situation? So we'd been studying the DCMS, the Department of Culture, Media, Sport, analysis all summer, and all the scientific studies that were being done around singing. And we started choir rehearsals again in August, and we were one of the first choirs in the UK to start singing again. Um, the New York Times came to cover us, which was really exciting. And they did an article on how we were doing it safely. And we, you know, touch wood, we have done it safely. We've had no COVID in the choir. We normally rehearse in a hall that holds 120, and to make it COVID compliant, we have 17 of us sitting 3 meters apart with all the doors and windows open, etc., etc. And then we've also learned how to do dual rehearsals, so physical rehearsals and about 20 people joining us on Zoom from home. So we have cameras facing me, microphones, etc. So it feels like they're in the room with us. We obviously kept that going until December, and now we are very much just back on Zoom, but are counting down the weeks until we hope we can go back to that. And I think this is one of the things we'll keep after COVID, is that we'll make sure there's always a digital version for people to join us who can't make it that week in person. I think that's a really valuable thing for us all to have learned.
I think it's lovely that you have. I've had quite a journey with Zoom, as everybody has, including really not liking it, and now I feel really grateful. You know, and actually, I've been doing a few classes and teaching and being in a few classes with people from California and South Africa, and I'm like, wow, how on earth we could have done that? So in a way, it's democratized creative practice in that way, and kind of makes it affordable. People that are less mobile don't have to worry about travelling. So I'm interested, Becky, in what we'll do afterwards, and this idea of coming back to the live experience and acknowledging actually we discovered something is really
Yeah.
great, isn't it? It's a really positive thing. It's a really positive thing.
And I would also actually like to say thanks to, I think, Tesco and the Arts Council and the London Communities Church Fund or something. We got a whole bunch of funding from people to make sure our refugee members had devices, which was so important. Again, digital poverty was a phrase I'd never heard of a year ago. And, you know, I've got a laptop and a computer and a phone and a microphone, and I'm connected straight away. But lots of our members don't have a router, Wi-Fi, you know, a data plan, a device. So we've been able to get people devices and data plans. So that's just made such a difference to these people. So thank you so much to all the grants people that gave us money for that. Calais Action was one of them as well. So those four grant people, thank you so much.
Really important for us to be aware, those of us that have a device, that isn't the case. So to share that able to. I've got a big one for you now. We're coming up towards the end, which is I really like to ask people to sort of be a little bit playful, I suppose, and imagine what their idea of a utopia might be. So a utopia, or I've been saying utopia-ish. And for you, Becky, if we were to let's dare to hope that post this peculiar and transforming time, that we emerge into a brighter future where we've learned the really positive lessons, lots of really positive lessons from this. What might that utopia or utopia-ish future be like or look like for you?
I know the answer to this straight away because it's a dream I've had since I was a child. And it's a dream I'll keep fighting for my entire life. And the answer is equality. Like everyone being equal. It doesn't make any difference what your gender, sexuality, race, religion, anything is. You've got to be equal with people. Um, when I was a student, I worked at the Royal Opera House as an usher. It was an amazing job. And I had such a brilliant boss. She was called Nikki Spencer, and I was there for 4 years. And she was amazing. She taught me so much. And she treated everybody equally. So from Lord Sainsbury, who, you know, was one of the big sponsors of the Royal Opera House at the time, to the cleaners, she treated everybody the same, with the same politeness and respect and tone in her voice. And everyone was of equal worth to her. And I just thought that was such a wonderful way of looking at the world. Everybody's equal. It doesn't matter if you're a cleaner or you're a multimillionaire, you have the same value. And I dream of a society where we treat everybody equally and respectfully.
What a fantastic example for you as well. That's
Yeah.
really, really important, isn't it, to have that example? Absolutely. And if you, given that that's your beautiful idea of a utopian future, which is fantastic, if we, as we're listening, what do you think we could each do as the situation we're in at the moment in the next sort of 24 hours to move us towards your utopian ideal of a future for equality?
Get to know someone who's not like you. So if we know that the world is a book, we know there's, 200 countries in the world, so many more different cultures within that. Get to know someone who's not on the same page as you. Ask them some questions. What do they eat? Where do they go shopping? What do they like to read? Do they go to the beach? Do they hike in the mountains? Like, what are the things that we have in common? We're all, connected to a family. We've all probably, had an education in some format. We've read books, we've watched videos or films, or we've, I don't know, played ball outside or played in the snow. Like, find out how someone else's life works.
Yeah, and actually circling back to what you said earlier, uh, sort of connecting with your community in whatever way suits you, whether that's, volunteering to do tree planting or joining a choir or wood carving or whatever, is an opportunity to meet someone that might be outside your immediate sort of circle of friends. We're blessed in London as well to it's kind of
Yes.
reach out to sort of people that have. You just made me think as well because you mentioned it earlier, Becky. I was thinking actually everybody's eats, so also food is a really great conversation. I think.
Really good one.
Yeah,
Yep.
food's a really good conversation. With my immediate neighbours, we're a very varied little stretch of road in Deptford, and we're always having conversations about food and giving each other bits of food and saying, "What is that?" In a in a really fun way. So that's
Yeah.
lovely. Um, yeah, and I just wanted also to give people the opportunity to connect with you or to sort of support you, join you, get involved in any way. And I wondered if you could speak a little bit about how people could join in or support you or connect with you.
Thank you. Yes. So we're called Citizens of the World Choir, and our website is either citizensoftheworldchoir.org, which is a really long one, or our short one is cotwchoir.com. There is also a Children of the World Choir that has the same acronym as us. So if you type in the wrong website address and comes up with them, just try the other one and it's us. Our member manager is Rachel, and her email is rachel@cotwchoir.com. We're always looking for new members, really happy to hear from people. We are obviously mostly a London-based choir, a Southeast London-based choir, but let's face it, anyone can join in from wherever they want at the moment. So do get in touch if you'd like to come and sing with us. We're also very happy, obviously, to accept any money donations that people want to make to us. We have a number of supporters that pay £10 a month as a supporter, and the cost when we do in-person rehearsals, the cost of a refugee's travel card to get to a rehearsal is £10. So for £10 a month as a supporter, you can help pay for one refugee member's travel to a rehearsal, which is so valuable, or at the moment help with data plans. So yes, money, energy, enthusiasm, members, all of the above are welcome with open arms. Thank you very much.
Voices and lungs and breath, all of it.
All of it, all of it. My goodness, we can't wait to start, gigging again and actually seeing people. I just can't wait.
It's really lovely, isn't it, to know what we've been missing, to deeply even though there's a bit of sadness in that. I quite like thinking, wow, I really love that. I love doing that, or I love that person, or I love that place, and it will come back. So, in terms of sort of gratitude and appreciation, that's good to not take anything for granted, like at all.
Yeah.
So that feels really great. I think I asked your lovely Matilda, colleague Matilda, if we might be able to include a song. I think she might have sent me something to do that. So hopefully,
Yeah.
treat, which is great. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time and
Oh,
for your amazing work and singing, all of you, and bringing such beautiful, joyful noise unto the Creator into the world.
thank you so much. And honestly, it's just been the journey of a lifetime. It's been incredible. I think for all of us, one of the best things we've ever done with our lives. And I'm so grateful to our community because it's the choir that makes it what it is. So thank you to the citizens of the World Choir.
Yes. As promised, you're about to hear a song from the brilliant Citizens of the World Choir. This is a song from South Africa called Siya Hamba, and it was live streamed from their December 2020 concert. Please excuse any difficulty with the sound quality. That's entirely my fault and not theirs. But yeah, we're all doing our best. So I hope you enjoy it.